brush the hair. I brush my hair so I look like adult and people will stop commenting about how dumb I look with my hair. Even though I don't care, but I do, 'cause I am a small person. Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome back to another recommendation list. Of course, this one being another one selected by you, the wonderful audience who participate in our community polls, being misunderstood horror gems. Yes, this is one that I've been wanting to do for a little bit, as most of these are. That's why I make them. But yeah, I've been really looking forward to this. I do want to talk about a few of these movies, particularly my number one being, I guess, more of a thriller, less of a horror film, but I still very much consider it a horror film, so I guess we'll talk about that when we get there. But I'm excited to talk about some movies that I just feel don't get highlighted enough, and tried to break it up a little bit more. I wanted to do some old, some new, only 5 picks, so we'll just have to kind of deal with what I chose. But just like any good horror movie, there could always be sequels. So if you guys like this video, give this thing a thumbs up, share it, subscribe, show all the support you can. I love you. And yeah, might as well just hop right into the list. Coming in at number 5, we have 2011's The Thing. At an Antarctic research site, the discovery of an alien craft leads to a confrontation between grad student Kate Lloyd and the scientist Dr. Sander. Now, if you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you will know that The Thing from 1982, yes, John Carpenter's reimagining, is my favorite horror film of all time, and likely my favorite film of all time, maybe only coming second to Jaws. We'll see about that. But yeah, I really, really love that film, and I know what you're thinking. Obviously, I have to hate the prequel. The prequel has a bunch of CGI monsters, and it's terrible in every single conceivable way. No, I actually really enjoy this movie. Is it as good as the original? No, not even close. But I really like the ideas in this one. I like the concepts, I like what they did with it, and I do think that if the studio hadn't been meddling around and kind of pushing the CG and the 3D like they were back in 2011, I think that we would have seen a lot more impressive, a lot more true to the original effects when it came to our critter here. And I gotta say, I think that for all of its flaws, this movie is still very watchable. There's a lot, again, like I said, interesting concepts that they introduce. Like, I love that we kind of dive into the fact that the Thing cannot assimilate metal when they're talking about their fillings or like bones that they've had to get replaced and things like that. I really dig the fact that they kind of dive into recreating the Norwegian camp that we see in the original film. And what they did, I almost think I love the behind the scenes more than I love the movie for this one. But what they did to kind of recreate that is just incredible. It's some of my favorite special features you can find on any Blu-ray release talking about a horror film. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you do, because I think it will show a bit more care and a bit more love that was put into this film that, again, was kind of unfortunately tarnished by studio meddling. Because there are a lot of great concepts. There's a whole element towards the end of this film that was completely scrubbed out. It's still in the movie, they just covered it up with a bunch of CGI gobbledygook so we couldn't see it. And what that element is just so unbelievably genius, in my opinion. And I'll just tell you right now, because if you don't know, there was supposed to be an alien of a different species that hung itself on the spaceship, killing itself before it could get assimilated. And that is what Kate finds in the spaceship just before the Sanders assimilated thing creature starts to attack her. And yeah, I think there's a lot of bright spots in this. Again, Kate being played by the great Mary Elizabeth Winstead, awesome. Joel Edgerton as Carter in this is also great. I kind of love the dichotomy you have between those two, and just the way that the film ends. It's so much fun. And again, if you are a big a fan as I am of the 1982 original The Thing, you will see the love and care that was put into this film and what's on the display here. I personally love to go back and rewatch this film, and I do think that it needs more supporters, which is why I think this is a misunderstood horror gem. Let's buzz our way into number 4 with 1989's The Fly 2. Yeah, I know. What? The Fly 2? Is this the sequel to the all-time great Cronenberg classic? What the fuck are you doing talking about that movie? It's great. That's why I'm talking about it. I love The Fly 2. I have such a soft spot for this film, and I feel like nobody talks about it. I think there's a lot of really great elements to this movie that make it not only a fun sequel, but a pretty emotional one, and one that I think is pretty resonant with the material of the first film. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this sequel and what it entails, let's give you a slight description. The almost human son of Brendel Fly searches for a cure to his mutated genes while being monitored by a nefarious corporation that wishes to continue his father's experiments. So I remember seeing The Fly a ton growing up. That was one of those ones that was always on television, and it being kind of a giant monster movie, and with TV being able to cut out some of the more intense, gory bits, it was one that my parents had no problem with me watching and just consuming because they knew that I loved monsters. Now, it took a while, but I eventually found out when I was still pretty young that there was a sequel to this film. And surprisingly enough, I believe my dad was actually kind of a fan of it. He said it was pretty good. So when it popped on TV one night, I just decided to check it out. And man, I really love this follow-up. I just fell so hard for Martin Brendel, played by Eric Stoltz. I thought that he was the perfect continuation to his father of, Brendel Fly, obviously. Jeff Goldblum's character from the first. I mean, just the charisma and just kind of the way that you feel bad for him. Just growing up under this corporation's, insight, him not being able to be a kid, him having to deal with this family curse of slowly turning into a fly monster, and just trying to live somewhat of a normal life, but knowing that nothing about you is normal. And I know that's kind of a plot that's been done to death, but I think it works here. It's also great when it comes to the body horror and the practical effects. They fucking crush it. I think that the creature, the fly, as it is at the end of this film, although looking more monstrous and more monster-ish, I should say, less fly-ish, I guess, I don't know. I think it still holds up. I think it's still very cool looking. Again, it's a little bit more intimidating, and, I'm not really trying to say that this film is any better than the first, but it is one that I think people need to give more of a chance and revisit, because I think that there are some nuggets of greatness in this. One of the returning actors that does come back is, of course, John Getz, and I really like what they do with his character, having him kind of be the foil from the first film, in a sense. He comes back in the third act and helps save the day a little bit, but him kind of being that asshole character and then kind of getting that redemption arc and then kind of carrying on to see what his life has become and just having a nice little nod and taste of the original film, I thought it worked really, really well. So for me, man, The Fly 2 is definitely one of those films that I love to throw on just after watching the original, and it's going to be a good couple of movies. It's a nice, solid double feature. It completes the story perfectly. Moving into number 3 with 2021's Wrong Turn. Friends hiking the Appalachian Trail are confronted by the Foundation, a community of people who have lived in the mountains for hundreds of years. As I was putting this thing together, I just was trying to go into the big recesses of my brain and think about films that I don't think just not only have rough reputations, or it's kind of like hit or miss if you're going to meet people who appreciate them for what they are, but also films that I feel like have gotten kind of swept under the rug, especially coming out of the pandemic. And I think one of the biggest examples of that is the most recent Wrong Turn. This being, of course, a reimagining, a remake to the original series. Now, there is going to be some pushback. There's going to be some naysayers, and a big piece of that is because yeah, we're not dealing with deformed cannibals in this one. Now, don't get me wrong. I fucking love The First Wrong Turn. I think that movie is awesome. It is one of my favorite summer horror films. And I absolutely adore Wrong Turn 2. Once you get past that, it's pretty messy. But, you know, I gotta say, I think that this one, having the balls, the guts, the gusto to just say, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to go a completely different direction here. We're going to change the story. We're going to make this something different entirely by just kind of plucking the DNA of the original Wrong Turn series. I think they killed it, man. I really love this movie. I think it's intense. It's got some of the most brutal and downright dastardly, disgusting scares of all of the Wrong Turn films. Now, the Wrong Turn movies have their gore, but this one, the implication of what they do and just the grounded nature that Alan B. McElroy, who funny enough wrote The First Wrong Turn, brought to this script, and then the visual style that Mike P. Nelson puts on screen here. I love what they did with this, and I would really love to see them kind of continue this, even though it does kind of feel like this is better off as a one-off, but I don't know. I just felt like they captured the kind of dangers of the Appalachian Trail and kind of having these mountain men who, instead of being, you know, deformed cannibals, are more or less just people cut off from society who want to remain that way, was a brilliant take. And I thought that this was very, very well done all the way around. And I really think that more people need to go back and watch it. It was one that, admittedly, it's okay if you kind of missed it. The world was kind of crazy at that moment in time. Movies were kind of in and out of theaters. And if it slipped under your radar, now is the best time to go back and check out 2021's Wrong Turn. Okay. All right. You got this. You can do this. Don't worry. It's just a video. People are going to say things. You don't have to take it so personally. You don't have to read those comments. Just say your opinion. Just say what it is. You know, be honest. Be yourself. Coming in at number 2, we have 2022's Skinamarink. 2 children wake up in the middle of the night to find their father is missing and all the windows and doors in their home have vanished. Howdy. Those of you who haven't shut off the video because I'm going to talk about Skinamarink, I thank you for staying with me. Yeah, I love this movie, guys. This is one that just absolutely caught me in the right time in my life, and if you have been a fan of this channel for any length of time, you've probably heard me talk about it. This is a very unique movie, and this is a movie that I completely understand is not for everybody, and I don't say that in a demeaning way. I'm not saying that you just didn't get it. You know, I'm not trying to put that out there at all. I think that this movie is kind of different in the sense of it's not necessarily supposed to be viewed or digested as a traditional film. This to me is kind of like a film that you should put on if you want to get scared, and you should definitely commit to making it the scariest setting for yourself possible. And I mean just putting on some headphones, like really nice headphones, sitting down in the middle of the night with all the lights off, and it's you. And I would even encourage you, Kyle Edward Ball, if you're watching this, don't beat me up, man, to watch this on like a phone where you have to hold it and get really close to it, because the analog horror take to this film, it's breathtaking to me. It's a side of horror that I just didn't really investigate much of, and now that we're seeing more and more of it since this film and The Outwaters came out the very same year, I have just grown to become obsessed with this style. I felt that this was refreshing. I felt that this was creepy, and yes, it does kind of linger and it takes a while to get things going for some of you, but I felt this movie flew by. And, you know, as someone who watches a ton of horror and just a ton of movies in general, I can really appreciate when somebody goes out of their way to present us something that is wholly their own vision. And that is what Skinamarink is. There isn't necessarily another film that I can think of like this. And I have to give mad props to Kyle Edward Ball for just having the guts to go out there, make this movie, and not only that, but get it into theaters. Seeing this in theaters for the first time was an experience I won't soon forget. I own it on Blu-ray, I own the Steelbook, and it is one, again, I love to watch, and I love to encourage people to watch it, because I've seen people who fell in love with this movie just like I did, and I've seen people who say that it's the biggest pile of dog shit they've ever seen. And, I think both are right. And I believe that is why I want to say this is a misunderstood gem, because it's not only a film that is divisive, but it's a film that I think is meant to be. It's important that it is. It's exciting that it is. And that's why I think it's earned so much respect from me, and why I have to say, even if you hate it, even if it's something that you've been avoiding, just give it a shot. See if maybe, just maybe, if you get this in the right setting, especially since we're moving into the Halloween season, maybe it'll scare the shit out of you. You never know. All that's left is, of course, my number one. And this is the one that I said at the opening, maybe not a pure horror film. I count it. I think that there's a lot of horror elements, but if you want to call this a thriller, certainly a survival film, absolutely I wouldn't go against that. But I think that this is a bit of a genre blend, and it's got some creature stuff in it. And yeah, let's stop burying the lead, Dylan. I have my number one pick, have 2011's The Grey. After their plane crashes in Alaska, 6 oil workers are led by a skilled huntsman to survival. But a pack of merciless wolves haunt their every step. Joe Carnahan's The Grey is a movie that I supremely think is underrated. This is probably the film that I think of most when it comes to misunderstood horror, thriller, movie gem that I can think of in recent years. This movie, to me, is so effective in what it sets out to do. And that's not just give you really intense, scary sequences with these badass, wonderful cross between CGI and practical effects wolves that we see throughout the film, but it's also this, again, story of survival. And, it is a story that we have seen before when it comes to planes crashing and people having to trek through the snow. But the elements that they bring into this, of just what it means to be, I guess, not to sound super toxic or whatever, a man, and just the responsibilities that are put on your shoulder, the family that you leave behind if you go and do a job like this, and what it's like to deal with grief and how that can affect people. And not to get overly personal, I mean, it's a very personal list, as they all are. But this came out just around the time, couple months, I want to say, after my mom died. And this movie I found to be a very profound, introspective way to look at grief. And I thought that, what Liam Neeson's character was going through and the journey that he went through both physically and, mentally, was very beautiful. And for that, it's a film that has stuck with me for many years. It's one that I always go back and at least watch once a year. And one thing that I absolutely hate, and I always rag on people when they shit on this movie for it, and it's a spoiler. So here's a spoiler warning for you. I'm just gonna say it right off the top here. Just give me just a minute or two to talk about it. 1, 2, 3, go. It's the ending, and how, yes, you see Liam Neeson gearing up to fight this alpha wolf, and it looks great. It's badass. He's breaking the bottles between his knuckles. He's going to use them however impractical that method is. It's like, this is what we've been waiting for. And he's giving this speech. He's kind of reciting this same speech that he's been going through most of the film. And when it finally hits and we cut to black, that is the perfect ending to this movie. I know some people think it's blue ball-y and it's dumb, but I fucking love it, because we're not supposed to know what happens there. It doesn't matter what happens there, because we know that Liam Neeson's lost everybody at this point. They've all died. They've all moved on, or they're gone. Like, everybody's out there with. His wife is gone. Nothing to go back to. So he is a man with nothing left to lose, with one of the most dangerous, cunning, and evil obstacles in the world in front of him. And, shit, why'd I get so fucking deep and philosophical there? Good lord. Sorry. I do love The Grey. I think this movie's awesome. It is one, again, I revisit very often. I think it's got a fantastic cast with not only Liam Neeson, but the likes of Dermot Mulroney's in this. We also have Frank Grillo. And, you know, there's just a lot of great character actors who pop up in this film. And, again, Joe Carnahan, I like him a lot when he tackles projects like this. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think that this is probably his best work. And I am just so madly in love with it. And I really hope that if there's any film that you take away from this list and you go and check out and watch, or at least give a rewatch or watch for the first time, it's 2011's The Grey. Another week, another recommendation list in the can. Thank you guys for helping me select this one. I had a couple of really interesting picks up there that I thought, and it was really neck and neck between this and comfort horror, so we're still prepping for October stuff. I know I've been saying that a lot through these videos. That's still very much going on. We're in Fantastic Fest right now. We're going to be having a lot of cool exclusive reviews up on the channel. And, you know, with all of that, I think I might just keep the trend going. So if Monday you see another poll with some new picks, I still have a long list of stuff I want to talk about. Feel free to vote on it. I love to hear what you guys think. And thank you so much for showing so much love for the brutal horror movies list. Yes, I have heard your cries and your concerns and everything in between. There will be a sequel list to that. We will be doing that here. I'll give it some time to keep running, and we'll just kind of see. Again, I don't like to go straight into a sequel list right after doing one. I like to let them marinate a little bit. So, yeah, lots of fun stuff there. Lots more to come on the channel. So thank you so much for watching this. And, yeah, until next time, I'm Dylan Newell. And remember, stay scared.
Do the horror shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna slash your ass. 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 Splattercast, gonna slash your ass.